The story starts off with raindrops falling on a battlefield full of blood and dead soldiers. Among the pile of dead humans, there was one who was still standing, even though he was badly injured and blood was dripping down from his face. He still was the only one among the pile of dead to be still alive, making him the strongest. However, humans were not the only creatures present on the battlefield. There was another creature, a sort of giant who was called a hayute. The creature was lying on the floor and our MC was there standing on top of him. The giant says that he completely failed to complete his duty and attain his goal. This giant was shocked to encounter such a powerful human being. It was beyond his comprehension. This caught our MC by surprise, as he had thought that the giant he was fighting was already dead. "Man, you have to pay a little more attention." He questions the giant, asking him how he is still alive. Ahayute was not the only giant who came to destroy the world completely and utterly. 2 other giants came along with him. Ahayute was the last one remaining among the 3, and their goal for destruction and violence was still unknown. Half of the Empire's land was filled with dead people and had become a literal graveyard. The giants were able to inflict this much damage in just 20 days. Surprising how our MC was standing on such a dangerous creature without making sure if it was actually dead. He asked the giant, "Why is it still alive?" The giant replied that it doesn't have much time left and it will meet its demise soon. It made the MC glad that someone who inflicted this much damage was finally going to perish from the face of this planet. As for the other 2 giants who came along with Ahayute, one of them was burnt to death after facing a red dragon, and the other giant was sealed eternally by a mage called Lawhorn. As our MC was telling the fate of his friends to the giant did not seem fazed by these statements at all, as he could tell the half-truth our MC was telling. It was like the giant was lying there listening to the MC brag, knowing full well that he was full of crap. The giant told him that all 3 of them shared senses with each other, and he was already aware of what happened to them. He further added that none of the giants were that weak, and those who fought them also died in the process alongside the giants. From all these events, the giant was able to conclude that powerful warriors like our MC no longer exist. Our MC cuts him off, asking how is he making all those false statements when one of the powerful warriors is standing right in front of him and is far from meeting his demise. However, the giant was no ordinary dumb creature. He was able to catch MC's bluff in a second and told him that he knew that his end would come soon as there was nothing he would be able to do to stop it. Moreover, the giant added that it was relieved that our MC had realized his powers that late in his life. If he were to have known about his powers sooner and concentrated and trained more to gain further knowledge and control, he could have been a huge obstacle in the path of these giants. Even when it is taking its last breaths, the giant still is rubbing salt on our MC's wounds. At that point, our MC was done with this giant's bullshit and told him that he knew about the life he had spent and he was not very proud of it. There was no need to remind him again and again. The giant did not stop talking and told the MC that he should be proud of himself for being this strong and being the only one alive among the pile of dead people, but all this did not matter as the land was vanished and buried by the starlight. The giant was not able to complete his sentence as our RMCC cut his head mid-sentence, killing him for good. At least let the dying giant complete his sentence. After killing the giant, our MC stood there, thinking about all his past memories with his other comrades and friends. The one friend he was particularly thinking about was lying dead in front of him. He kneeled down in front of his dead friend, paying his respects and telling him that he should have just run away and saved his life instead of fighting such a monster. As he was still contemplating the fact that why was he the only one able to kill the monster when all the strongest swordsmen of the Empire failed. He heard a faint voice, calling for help. He instantly recognized the voice and ran towards it. It was the voice of General Adeshan. She had lost one of her arms, but was fortunately still alive. After meeting the only person alive on the battlefield besides himself, Hey, in a joking manner, tells her that her condition doesn't match someone of her ranking, and she replies that a corporal like him isn't any better than her. Afterward, she asks about Ahayute and if it is dead. As Ronan, our RMC, tells her that it has already met its demise and the body is not that far away, she starts to cry. Tears of happiness drip down from her eyes as he goes ahead and thanks Ronan. In reply to her gratitude, Ronan asks her to fulfill one of his requests. Just what is he requesting from someone who has lost an arm and is on the brink of death? He asks her to clean up the disciplinary soldiers better this time compared to the previous events. They are always left behind or burned, and are not given the importance that should be accorded to someone who sacrificed their lives. The commander asks him to look into it and ensure they are treated better this time since his condition is far better than hers. Ronan coughs and blood comes out as he tells the commander that his own situation is not any better than hers and he could die any second. The commander asks if there is something he wants to do if he survives this ordeal. Ronan replies that there is definitely a lot he wants to do, but the only thing that comes to his mind right now is that he wants to go to the academy. A little late for this one, I guess. One reason behind this is what the giant said to him about wasting his talent, and the second main reason, the more important one, is that his late sister always wished for him to go to the academy. But all of this does not matter since, according to Ronan, he is about to meet his demise anyway. Suddenly, the rain stops, and they start to feel a malevolent presence. Another giant is flying in front of them, this one with 8 wings. The main problem is that it is not the only one. There are countless others. These two can do nothing but look at them in complete horror. Just 3 giants were enough to deal this much damage and make the whole empire a graveyard. But experiencing the sight of their whole army makes the commander lose all hope. All she wants to do is save the world, but at this point she is completely powerless. Suddenly, Ronan shouts, grabbing her attention and asking her to get a hold of herself and not lose hope just yet. He wants her to use telekinesis or whatever she can use at that moment to shoot Ronan towards them, as his sword cannot reach them. Watching his determination surprises the commander, and she asks if he is going to fight them in this situation. He replies that he has no other choice, and he can't stand the thought of losing all hope and just dying meaninglessly. Even if he were to die, the least he could do was inflict as much pain as possible on his enemies. Wow! Determination fueled with menace. Looking at his determination shocks the commander, and she soon realizes that he is the reason they were able to reach this stage of the battle. Afterward, she calls his name but asks him to stay quiet as she leans forward and kisses him. Ronan, even at the brink of death, you are such a ladies' man. As Ronan is surprised about what exactly is going on, making the kiss an excuse, she puts something in his mouth. Ronan tries to inquire about what she did but cannot hear anything she is saying or trying to let him know. Eventually, he hears her last words as she says that if he were to meet her again, all she wants is for him to tell her to leave anything stupid she is doing and become a tailor. The commander has done a lot of things, but nothing compared to this. As the giants begin to attack, one of their attacks hits them, and the next time Ronan opens his eyes, he is in his hometown. There is no trace of the Grand Commander, and apparently he has returned to the past, but his memories of that event are still as fresh as ever. As Ronan finally returned to his past, he started to remember what the commander had said to him. Her last words were that she made Ronan swallow an orb that had the ability to turn back time. It was thanks to this orb that the Grand Commander, who was once a tailor, was able to reach such a high rank. The orb Ronan swallowed had the ability to allow you to regress 4 times in total. The commander had already used it a total of 3 times, and she gave the last chance to Ronan. Instead of saving her own life, she gave it to Ronan as she truly believed that he had the power to kill the giants and save the world from them. Why does she expect Ronan to do something she couldn't even do with 3 tries? She advised him to train hard and master his skills to become even more powerful. Afterward, she told him to join the Filian Academy as it was one of the best places to learn. filled with smart and talented people. After he remembers everything, he thinks of it as a dream, but soon realizes that it is all true. Suddenly, it hits him. The thought that if he had returned back to his past self, he might be able to meet his older sister who had died. Swarming with happy emotions and excitement, he runs towards the destination where he might be able to meet his older sister. But midway, he sees a bunch of kids bullying someone, hanging a child from the tree upside down. Quite an interesting situation to experience on your first day back. One surprising thing about it was that the kid was hanging with magic, and no other physical material was used. A person who could use magic was rare, to the point that even on the battlefield, there were not many individuals capable of using magic. And to find someone that important in a countryside town was quite surprising. The bullies were demanding money from the child. He told the bullies that all his money was for his sick mother. Unfortunately, the bullies did not give a damn and told him that they would be taking all his money and that they couldn't care less about his sick mother. After slapping the child, the bully asked the guy using magic to hang him on the tree to lift him even higher. He hesitated and said that it could seriously injure the kid, and the bully insisted and told him if he were not to listen to him, he would hang him alongside the kid. I mean, how? Even to hang the other kid, you are using someone else's powers. The guy using magic knew that what he was doing was wrong. He had learned magic just for the sole reason of being good at something. It was never his intention to be stuck doing something like this. After gathering courage as he was about to tell the bully to stop, Ronan struck him with a wooden stick and told him to stop. All that courage was wasted thanks to our MC. This made him stop using magic and the kid hanging fell on the ground. The bully moved towards him, asking him why he suddenly stopped using his magic. Ronan got in front of the guy with magic and asked him to talk to him, completely ignoring the bully. He asked him how he was able to learn magic, and he replied that he had learned it from a grimoire that he had bought from a peddler. This was impressive, as he was able to learn this much from a cheap grimoire. Ronan thought in his head that this could be an important tool to use against the giants. The bully, who was getting ignored, had enough and he took out a sword. He lunged towards Ronan, saying that he might have purposefully lost to him once, but he would be putting him in his place this time. No one loses purposefully. You were just bad, Mr. Bully. Ronan quickly realized that even if his skills with the sword were bad, he was strong. And that was all that mattered in a fight like this. Ronan easily dodged his attack. The guy who fought giants would easily dodge a wannabe swordsman. Even though Ronan's body was younger, the skills he had acquired were still the same. A skill named Battle Sense helped him dodge this attack flawlessly. Shamelessly, the bully tells Ronan that he would spare his life if he were to kneel and beg for his life, as according to him, Ronan was able to dodge the sword just because he was lucky. He further added that if he were to kill Ronan, he would treat his sister well and say some dirty things about his sister. Ronan did not let this go. He swung his wooden stick with so much force that it was able to cut off the bully's ear. This made the bully cry in pain and drop his sword instantly. As the bully was still in agony, Ronan asked him if he wanted to die while making a really angry face. After Ronan struck the bully with the wooden stick he was holding, the kids who were with the bully were shocked and still trying to comprehend what had just happened. They were confused about how he was able to cut off his ear with a wooden stick. Ronan warned them to get away from there and to take their bully friend with them, or they would end up like him. Imagine the whole gang with only one ear. This was enough to scare all of them. Ronan even told them to leave all the money they had stolen and some more for the trouble they had caused everyone. As they were scared, all those guys agreed. Ronan went ahead and gave all that money to the kid who was getting bullied. The kid was surprised and asked Ronan if it was really okay for him to have this much money. Ronan told him that all he wanted was the sword that the bully was carrying, and he could have all the money. He told the kid not to worry about the bullies anymore, as after this incident, they wouldn't have the audacity to cause any more trouble. He can be a little stealthy and the bully won't hear him, considering 50 less hearing ability. As they both were about to conclude their conversation, the kid who used magic jumped into the conversation and apologized sincerely to the kid who was getting bullied. He told him that when Hans, the bully, made him do all that filthy work, he was crying the same way as the kid getting bullied was crying today, and that made them both victims. He told Asel not to worry about it, as it was not his fault. After he left, Ronan told Asel to meet him after 4 days, as he had something to discuss with him. After threatening him to meet up after 4 days, Ronan left to meet up with his sister. He had brought flowers for his sister, and according to him, she liked flowers. But as he was getting embarrassed and was about to throw them away, his sister opened the door. As his sister asked him how come he had come early, he thought about all the time he used to think about this situation in his disciplinary soldier days. All he used to think was what to say to his sister when he met her again, but right now all he could say was that he was back home. The flowers as a gift made his sister, Iril, excited, and she was so happy to receive them. After they finished eating, Ronan asked his sister about her age to calculate which year he was in and how long it was until the giants invaded. His sister replied that she was currently 22. After getting to know her age, he was about to roughly calculate that the giants would be invading the earth in about a decade. Her little brother suddenly asking her age made her worry, and she started to check his condition and if he had a fever. This reminded Ronan how kind-hearted his sister was and how she always used to care for her little brother. And our MC had previously left her to go become a disciplinary soldier. Be grateful this time. That's what gave rise to his determination to save the world and his sister from those giants. Ronan finally told his sister that he planned to take admission to an academy. As this was a dream of his sister, Iril was engulfed in excitement, and after confirming if he really meant it, she ran away and started to look for something. Soon after, she brought a giant pot full of money. Apparently, Iril was saving up in case Ronan ever decided to go to the academy, and she was hiding it as it was supposed to be a surprise. Ronan, even though he was glad and thankful to his sister, told her that this much money wouldn't be enough, and he wanted her to use this money for herself. As she was about to tell him that this was quite a large sum of money, and even if she didn't know the academy he wanted to enter, this would be enough. But as soon as Ronan named the academy, the Imperial School, Filion Academy, Iril was so shocked that she let out a scream in surprise. Filion Academy is the Empire's best and leading academy. All the teachers present are talented, and the school itself is funded by the Imperial family, so it lacks nothing. It is considered the factory of heroes, and that shows just how popular and high-class this academy is. Grand Commander Adeshan and some of the other most talented students studied here. But it is not an easy task to get admission there. With such high standards and high fees, it is as difficult as ever. Even his supportive sister had a vague reaction when she heard about it. I guess she had confidence in her brother, but not this much. Ronan wanted to make sure to make this dream of his sister come true. And for that, he had to be accepted into the academy. Afterward, he went and met up with Asel. After meeting up as promised, Ronan asked Asel to test something on him. As Asel, confused, asked him for further details, he told him to use telekinesis on him and lift him as high as possible. Asel was hesitant to do something as dangerous as this, but Ronan was able to comfort him by saying that it was not dangerous at all, and that he wouldn't be dying from something like this. This was enough for Asel to agree, and he started using telekinesis, called Invisible Hand, on Ronan. Asel agrees to do stuff way too quickly. It was a lot better than Ronan had expected it to be. However, as Asel was still an entry-level mage, the height and stability of this magic were lacking, but it had a similar feeling to when other mages on the battlefield used it on Ronan when he was fighting a Haiute. This magic made it possible for him to fight the giant on equal footing. Telekinesis was a rare ability to begin with, and not many mages were aware of or knew how to use it. The fact that he was able to find someone who was able to use telekinesis was a good thing, as it was something that he would need in his battle against the giants. After a while, Asel asked Ronan if it was getting difficult for him to hold on any longer and asked him to come down already. Ronan said that he had some other things to test as well, and he doesn't have to worry about him as he can just come down on his own whenever he wants. Afterward, he slashed the mana midair and cut Asel's mana, which allowed him to come down on his own. This confused Asel, as this was the first time he had seen something of this sort. He asked Ronan about it but did not explain it thoroughly, as he himself did not know how he was able to do such things. He wanted to find out the secret behind this ability himself. Later, he hands Asel a bag and asks him to follow as he has passed the test. According to Ronan, there was something they had to do before the moon disappeared. Along the way, Ronan told Asel about Filion Academy, and he wanted Asel to take the entry test along with him. Asel was hesitant, and when Ronan asked the reason, he told him that he had things he was talented in. But Asel did not know how to do anything, and he was cowardly. Upon hearing him, Ronan asked him if he wanted to spend all his life like this. Suddenly, Ronan turned into a motivational speaker. Ronan told him that he had talent in magic which he was wasting on bullies. After that, he started a roast session on him, telling him that he was cowardly, timid, and a crybaby loser. But he also told him that it was fine being all those things if eventually he wanted to change and make himself better. And at the same time, he had to change quickly, as after a certain amount of time passed, he wouldn't be able to do anything but regret. He was able to guide him this well because all of that had happened to him in his past life. This sweet talk was enough to change Asel's mind, and he was now on board to go to Filion Academy. Now, it was time to train Asel, and as they moved forward, Ronan made an evil face as he was able to manipulate Asel into agreeing with him. Later, Ronan gave Asel his first training test, and it was to fight an opponent. The opponent he found was a lunar goblin, the leader of them of all things. Man, have some mercy on the timid boy. Timid boy! Both Ronan and Asel were hiding in the bushes, silently looking at the lunar goblins. Lunar goblins are different from your average goblins. They have yellow skin and disfigured bodies, but one thing that truly makes them unique is their thirst for gold and other sorts of treasures. Lunar goblins attack merchants to steal their belongings and treasure. After stealing all the loot, they gather it at a single location and hold a festival. They mostly like to hold the festival on nights with a full moon. And today was one of those nights. These probably are the weirdest types of goblins I have heard about. Ronan was present there not just to spectate, but his main goal was to take benefit from this night and steal all their treasure. Interestingly, our MC is going to pull a reverse card on them. Ronan got to know about this fact in his past life when he was wandering around. The plan was simple. He wanted Asel to use the telekinesis ability to move all the treasure into his bag. Even though it seemed simple at first, the main goal was to move all the treasure without making a single noise, or these goblins would wake up instantly. Asel, as always, was hesitating and was not too confident in his ability to use telekinesis, but Ronan started to motivate him yet again. He told him that in order to get admission to Filion, two things were necessary. One was an insane amount of money, as the tuition fee was very high, and the second one was a real-life experience. Money was important, but the experience was even more important, as they would be against students, more talented than them, and aristocrats who were given training from birth. There would be no point if they were to fail every class, so in order to perform well, real-life experience was very important. The only way to gain experience was to take risks in real life and gain as much experience from those situations as possible. Ronan told Asel that these goblins were the perfect opponents, as they would be getting both money and experience from them. After all this explanation, Asel had nothing to say, and as he had no other better idea, they went ahead with executing this plan. Surprisingly, Asel was able to fill several bags with the treasure without making any noise or alerting the sleeping goblins. After they were done, Ronan congratulated Asel and rubbed his head, telling him that experience is the best way to get better. Ronan was not too confident in Asel's abilities, but after this, He was glad that he had found such a good and talented minion for himself. Wow! Treating poor Azel as a minion, our MC sure is ruthless. They both were able to fill up a few bags full of treasure and wanted to leave as soon as possible before anything else went wrong or the goblins woke up. As they were about to walk away, they heard some guys running after a bird in the forest and making a lot of noise. Ronan thought about what kind of people make this much noise in the middle of the night, but there was something he wasn't aware of. Because of this noise, all the goblins woke up, and the first thing their eyes went on was their treasure, which was not present at the usual spot. This sudden disappearance of their treasure created a lot of tension among them until they saw Ronan and Azel, who were trying to get away. Thieves stealing from other thieves is quite an interesting situation. The goblins instantly recognized them as thieves and charged towards them. Seeing all this scared Azel to death, and he advised Ronan to throw away all the loot and run for their lives, but Ronan refused. He was not scared at all. He knew there was no other way to earn this much money, and this treasure was their only choice. The sword that Ronan got from the bully was a long sword made from cheap steel. Even though it was not the best quality sword, it still had the ability to withstand at least 15 attacks. However, the total number of goblins present was 30, but these 15 attacks were more than enough for Ronan. The first attack he made, he beheaded 3 goblins at once. As the sword could not withstand that many attacks, Ronan had to kill more than 1 goblin per attack. The battle ended before it even properly started. All the goblins were slain by our protagonist. On the other hand, Azel was sitting there trying to comprehend what he just witnessed. He wouldn't have believed it himself if he were not there to watch it with his own eyes. According to Azel, Ronan beheaded 3 goblins with 3 strikes. Afterward, the goblin mob came running toward Ronan, but he was just so fast that for a moment he completely disappeared and appeared again in front of the last goblin. All the while he was invisible. He was cutting all the goblins in his way, and when he reached the last one, all the goblins were already dead. After flawlessly killing all the goblins, Ronan told Azel to pack up his bags as they were going home. As they were walking back home, Ronan realized that he was tired from all these activities. What he thought would be an easy task came along with a lot of problems. His muscles were also aching and getting sore, and it was surprising for him as this fight was not that hard to make him that tired. Maybe it was due to his younger body. That's what happens when you enjoy your sister's cooking without making an effort to exercise alongside it. Along the way, Azel questioned the ruckus that they had heard. Ronan replied that even though he had no idea, he would be making them pay for causing so much trouble for him. Just as he finished his sentence, an arrow came rushing toward Azel, but fortunately, Ronan grabbed it midway with his bare hands. He could have easily blocked it, but our MC decided to look cool and risk getting hit by the arrow by grabbing it with his hands, as both of them were contemplating where this arrow suddenly came from. 2 guys appeared, apologizing and saying that they had thought them to be someone else and that it was not their intention to fire an arrow at them. Ronan interrupted them midway and asked them to cut the crap and tell him their true identity, as even when they were sugarcoating them with their words, the look in their eyes was clear as day. The last thing Ronan could ignore was the thirsty eyes of these 2 looking at their bag. One of the guys again apologized for not introducing himself earlier. Afterward, he took out a dagger from his pocket and, while attacking Ronan, told him that they were the Kaliboros. Ronan grabbed his arm midway and punched him right on his jaw, rendering him useless for a while. After witnessing what happened to his partner, the other one charged towards Ronan with a dagger, but surprisingly, Azel used an invisible hand on him, which made him unable to move from his position. Ronan, making use of his zero movement, grabbed his dagger and sliced him into pieces. Azel was shocked and asked Ronan if he had killed him, and Ronan replied by saying that it would just be stupid to let someone live whose sole intention was to kill him. Later, Ronan told Azel about the Kaliboros. It was an evil organization that did a lot of kidnapping, human trafficking, poaching, and a ton of other grave crimes. They were also known as the Empire's most evil group. Getting jumped by goblins and facing the Empire's most evil group, Ronan sure is getting unlucky today. As he killed the other guy, he told Asel that if he was not there to save him, his organs probably were getting harvested somewhere and he would have been dead and buried by now. This organization was this evil that if you knew who they were, letting them live was a more serious crime than killing them. After handling the situation, as they were about to leave, they heard something. The bag that those guys were carrying started moving on its own. Looking at a bag moving on its own made both of them curious, and they went ahead to open it. The moment they opened the bag, a chicken-like bird flew, making both of them confused regarding this whole situation. The chicken-like bird that came out of the bag had blue feathers. It was quite a rare sight as both of them were looking at a blue bird for the first time in their lives. So, you are saying that Ronan saw a giant with 8 wings but not a blue bird his whole life? This bird was shackled by a Kaliboro's poaching shackle. The shackle was able to disturb the prisoners' mana and restrict their movements. As Ronan was wondering about the shackle on the bird's legs, a magic circle appeared on the bird and a human-like voice started to emerge. Hearing it scared Asel, as he thought that the blue bird started talking, but Ronan corrected him, saying that it was not the bird who was talking, it was apparently a magic called communication magic. This magic only appeared once the bird came out of the bag, which made Ronan wonder if that bag had a mana-dampening ability as well. However, the voice that was coming from the other side was of the owner of that bird. His name was Varen, and he was a researcher of fantastical beasts at the institution. The name of the blue bird was Marpez. He had tried to communicate several times, but it never worked, and he was starting to get worried about this bluebird. Afterward, he asked who these both were, and Ronan replied that they both were Passersby when they were attacked by poachers, and these poachers were the ones carrying this bird. They saved it. Saved might not be the best word to use here, as this guy only fought them because they were after his gold. After hearing the story, Varen showed his gratitude to them both. Ronan asked how they could return this bird back to him, and in response, Varen asked them to free the bird from the shackle, and it would be able to make its way back home, considering the dream bird had a great homing instinct. Ronan took out his sword and swiftly broke the shackle, freeing the bird. After getting free, the bird started to push his ass toward Ronan's face, and when he awkwardly asked Varen about this, he informed Ronan that the bird was actually asking Ronan to pluck a feather before it flies away. The feather of a dream bird acts as a compass, allowing them to visit that location whenever they please. Apparently, the bird wanted to visit Ronan again sometime later. Varen invited them both to visit them if they ever came to the institution, and with that being said, the bird flew away. However, before flying away, the bird also gave Ronan something else as well. Yeah, it is a cliffhanger. You are going to have to wait to find out. A few days later, Ronan and Asel visited the market to sell all the treasure they gathered. One of the jewels he was selling was sold for 20 gold coins. The Carabel merchantry owner, Duon Carabel, was the one who bought it. He was happy as Ronan had sold all the goods he had collected from the goblins to him, and Duon himself was happy to buy all these valuable items. Ronan was also very glad to sell his stuff at such good prices, as all the other merchants were paying way too low. A lot of scammers in the market. Ronan sure was brave to take this much loot in such a shady market. Later, Ronan took something else out of his pocket. He was not looking to sell this item, but to know more about it. It was an egg-like object. The bluebird laid it on Ronan's hand before flying away. He had thought it to be poop, and when he threw it at a rock, the rock completely shattered, but the egg was still as good as new. As it was something a rare, fantastical bird laid, he was sure it was of great value. Unfortunately, the merchant had no idea, and he first took it as horse poop. Of all the things he could have said, the merchant decided to go with horse poop. He advised Ronan to get it appraised at a specialized place. Failing to fulfill his curiosity, he went ahead and asked the merchant if he had any books about Filion. As they both were about to take the entrance exam, the book might be able to give them some valuable information. The merchant told them that it was perfect timing as his daughter was going to apply there as well, and she would be able to help. Concurrently, his daughter arrived at the scene. Her name was Maria. Her dad introduced Ronan and Asel as valuable customers, and Maria in response called them little babies. Her father quickly apologized for her language, but Ronan on the other hand was curious about something. He went to Maria and asked her if she used the middle name Sen. Apparently, she looked exactly like a person Ronan knew in his past life. Afterward, he asked her to lend him an ear, but what he said was something no one expected. He asked her if she had a dick. Man asking a girl that question. Ronan, have you gone insane? Maria was still in shock as to what she heard. She was still trying to contemplate how a person whom she had just met would say something like this. Ronan, without hesitating, continued his weird talk, saying that it didn't look like she had one. Ronan, stop already. You should read the room. He thought he was mixing two separate people and started to think if the merchant had a son he was unaware of. Just as he was delving deeper into his thoughts, Maria slapped the shit out of him, telling him to shut up already. The moment he was slapped, he was sure. The sensation he felt was very similar to Count Maria Sen. Maria Sen was someone Ronan knew from his previous life. When Ronan was a disciplinary soldier in a place called Armelin, Maria was in charge of the supplies. They quickly became friends as Maria was someone who had a great personality and a great work. However, whenever someone touched the topic of dicks, Maria always got angry and had an unusual habit of slapping people. He was always curious as to why Maria always got angry when anyone talked about dicks. But he never got the chance, as the next time he met Maria was on the battlefield, and she had already died before he got the chance to ask her. Thank God he didn't. Look what happened right now. Finally, he knew now she was a girl, and that's why the topic of dicks always made her mad. Looking at Ronan laugh even after getting slapped made her even more angry, and she came to hit him again, but this time Ronan stopped her and hit her instead, as he was lecturing her to not hit him again, as he only allowed it that time because he was in the wrong. But Maria ignored all his statements and instantly headbutted him. And with this, they both started fighting each other. The merchant and Azel, who were watching them from the side, had to intervene and stop them. Such a fun fight! Why did these two referees decide to interrupt the fight? Later, Asel was sitting, confused as to what was going on. Both Ronan and Maria, who were ready to kill each other and were fighting each other without pulling any punches, now were in a stable mood, discussing something. They finally started to get along. Apparently, Maria was checking the quality of some swords for Ronan. Ronan was given 3 swords and a magic wand, and after asking Maria to check the quality, she told him that the black iron sword was the best among them as it was very sturdy and was something that even knights wanted to own. Even with Ronan's skills, this one won't be breaking like the one he stole from that bully. Maria got distracted when her attention went towards Asel. She asked if this was the rare maid she had heard about and later asked her about the magic she used. Maria was shocked when Asel told her that the magic she used was telekinesis, as it was quite a rare one, and according to Maria, it was good enough to land her a scholarship in Filion. The minion is already doing better than the so-called master. Now, the only problem was these two. Maria told Ronan that they both would need a technique to showcase during the exam. There was a practical test apart from the written one, and even if you did well in the physical one, you can get selected solely on its basis. In other words, the physical one was more important than the theory one, and all they had to do was to impress their professors. Ronan asked her what students normally demonstrate to impress them, and Mayra replied that most of the Nobel family students showcase their family's techniques, while others demonstrate their personal manner fighting techniques. Ronan at this point interrupted her, asking about manner fighting techniques. Apparently, to Ronan it was a surprise that students who were swordsmen could also use manner, but to Maria it was common sense. According to her, every Filion student would be able to do this simple feat. It was normal for her to sense the mana and use it to your advantage in actual combat. Ronan was listening to all this while making a confused face. Everything was probably flying over his head, poor Ronan. Maria finally asked if he even knew how to sense mana, and he said that yes, he did, as it was similar to using aura. This statement shocked Mayra so much that she gave up all hope. Bro is living life for the second time and still has no idea of the basics. Afterward, she picked up his swords and asked him to come outside. Ronan was worried that she would accidentally damage his swords, but she comforted him, saying that she would pay him 3 folds if she did. She was about to give Ronan some special training. Mana is something that exists in the world naturally, and to sense your own mana needs concrete concentration, and after sensing it, you are able to use it for your own advantage after loads of training. All the students apply to Filion and after undergoing this stage. Aura and mana, who according to Ronan were similar, actually were worlds apart. Aura was something that was gained after training for a minimum of 10 years or more and was mostly achieved by people whose talents were acknowledged. However, it didn't mean anything to Ronan. He had actually faced a lot of aura users in his past life, and it was all the same for him as every single one of them died or was lost in front of him. Quite an interesting way to brag about your strength. The special training started, and instantly, Maria charged right towards Ronan, who had not expected this kind of movement. He blocked the attack, but was very impressed. The clash between Ronan and Maria had finally begun, both of them giving their all, trying not to be the one to taste defeat. Ronan was very impressed by Maria. The power she exerted was beyond anything he had expected, and she even dual-wielded. It was a mana fighting style that made her strong and agile with the sword, but Ronan was not the only one impressed. Maria, on the other hand, was even more impressed by Ronan. She had initially planned to finish the fight with her first attack, thinking it better for Ronan than being embarrassed in front of the whole crowd in Filion. She really was being considerate towards someone who asked if she had a dick during their first meet-up. But she couldn't have been more mistaken, as in this fight, she was the one getting pushed even with all the mana techniques she had. For someone to be this powerful even without using any mana techniques was something she had witnessed for the first time. As she was deep in thought, Ronan suddenly caught her off guard, and as he was about to land an attack, Maria knew he had to dodge, and blocking was not an option. She ended up dodging his attack at the last second, but if she had hesitated to choose and blocked it instead, something bad might have happened. After they both appreciated each other's skills, Ronan started to walk away, but Maria told him to continue as the fight was not over. Ronan replied, telling her to keep her promise to pay 3 folds if the swords broke, and guess what? The sword Maria was using was completely shattered. Such a cool way to end a fight. Ronan sure is learning how to be cooler day by day. After complimenting Maria, Asel left with Ronan. A few days later, Ronan came again to collect the money for the sword, but Maria had different plans for him. She had gathered a lot of books for them to study from. It included workbooks and summaries that she had made herself. I guess the first impression did not matter, as he was able to impress her later on. Ronan thought that she had some bad intentions, but Maria told him that she was only doing this much because she started to like them both and wanted all 3 of them to pass the entrance exam. Later, she said her goodbyes and left as she had to go somewhere because of work. The next time they will meet will be at the entrance exam. After she left, Ronan realized that his current shape was nowhere good enough to pass the exam. He had to train his body and study with everything he had. With that being said, he went back home and started his preparations. He started eating his sister's cooking so much that his stomach was always near bursting, and after gathering all those calories, he used to go to the outskirts of the village to hunt monsters. Hunting monsters helped him increase his stamina and overall fighting skills. He used to hunt monsters until no monsters were in sight. Aside from the physical training, he was also taking his studies very seriously, learning and studying late at night every day. He did all he could to prepare for the exam. A month passed, and it was finally time for the exam. Both Ronan and Asel travelled to the capital city of Vallon. As they reached Philion, Asel couldn't believe her eyes, as this was the first time he had seen something this grand and luxurious. Ronan asked Asel to stop acting like a country bumpkin and get going. Every time Asel looked at Ronan, he was surprised, as Ronan had changed and gotten bigger due to his hard work and training. All the dishes his sister made were finally showing results. Ronan realized that a guy called Swordsenschlieffen lived here. He was a descendant of Grantia, a prestigious swordsman family, and keeping the reputation of his family, his own skills were also unmatched, making him the strongest in the empire. However, right now he would have been the same age as Ronan, and there was a high chance that they would meet during the exam. I hope he doesn't go ahead and ask him some weird questions like he did with Maria. Afterward, Asel asked him if Ronan had brought the feather he got from the dream bird. Fortunately, Ronan already had packed it, thinking that they might be able to meet the bluebird's owner in this city. As soon as he took out the feather, it started to point at the highest floor of Philion. Interestingly, the owner of the bluebird was a Welian himself. Veron was a zoology professor at Philion. He had an idea that the people who had saved his bluebird might be visiting today due to the exam, and he went to open his window for some ventilation just in case Ronan visited him today. Spoiler, it was a huge mistake that he was about to make. He sure was right about it. As soon as he opened the window, the evil-looking face of Ronan emerged, making the professor scream like a little child. The sudden appearance of Ronan scared Veron, who stood at a distance shivering and asking questions. He's embarrassing the lions with how he is reacting right now. Veron also scared Ronan with his scream. Just as Veron was starting to make weird scenarios, he noticed Marpez's feather in Ronan's hand and recognized them both as the heroes who saved the bluebird. We welcomed them and constantly apologized for his rudeness. Ronan told him not to apologize further, as according to him, the one who was responsible was Asel, who used his magic to climb all the way to the top floor. Asel interrupted, saying that Ronan was the one who told him to use his magic. Upon hearing Asel reveal everything to Veron, Ronan squeezed Asel's mouth to make him stop talking. Veron was quite surprised himself, as he did not expect the heroes to be the ones who were going to take the entrance exam, and he told them if he knew sooner, he could have written a recommendation letter to make the whole admission easier. I guess he should have shared more when he talked to Mr. Lion before. Later on, Ronan took out the egg that the bluebird had laid on his hand and showed it to the professional in order to gain some information about this mysterious egg. Veron was very happy to see this egg, as it was not the egg of a normal bird but the bird of a dream bird. This egg was so special because even the professor had no idea what was going to hatch from the egg. Ronan thought that only a bird could hatch from a bird's egg, but for dream birds, this was not the case, as this egg depends upon the environment that is surrounding it. A dream bird's egg can hatch a phoenix if it is surrounded by an area of lava, or a monster if it is surrounded by a monster's nest. Even though it was still possible to predict the type of animal that would hatch from the egg, the case for this particular egg was different. This egg was a myriad of manna. After analyzing the egg, Veron asked Ronan to keep the egg. Ronan was confused, as Veron was giving something this precious to Ronan. But Veron told him that the bluebird laid this egg in his hands, and there might be a reason for this situation. He trusted his little bird friend and wanted to respect his feelings. That's why he wanted Ronan to keep the egg. Ronan agreed, as he was also curious to find out what would hatch from the egg. As Ronan and Asel were about to leave, Veron went ahead and gave them some sort of scroll, informing them that this would help them when the egg hatched. No, it was not a cool-looking scroll like the one in Kung Fu Panda, just an ordinary old-looking one. Afterward, the physical exam had finally commenced and every participant was waiting for their turn. Applicant number 112 entered the examination room, and Ronan was number 113, the next one in line. As he was waiting, He complained about the long waiting time to Maria, who was sitting next to him. He asked Maria about her dress and why she was wearing something this elegant but uncomfortable. She had it all planned. She was actually dressed this well just in case any noble became her customer. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. A cell was not in the same hall as them, as the magic testing hall was separate. After applicant 112 came out looking drained and stressed, it was not time for Ronan to go in. Maria wished him luck and told him not to fail the exam as he went in. As soon as he entered the room, there were 5 Philion professors sitting in front of him. In the middle was Philion's headmaster, Krava Kratia. On his left was a swordsmanship instructor, Ronan introduced himself to the professors and the headmaster greeted him in response. After that, he started telling him about the actual exam. A magically engineered dummy will be emerging, and his task is to use whichever technique he desires to hurt the dummy. For someone who had fought giants, a dummy would be an easy target, right? Well, I hope so. Hearing about such an easy task made Ronan confident, and he said that just a fast cut would be enough. The 2 professors on the right started discussing how he would not be able to judge the true strength of that dummy. It apparently had the defense ability to even withstand an aura attack, and it could even regenerate. Afterward, they started to make fun of Schlieffen, who couldn't even dent the dummy. The headmaster was listening to everything and was thinking that all these jokes would be for nothing if he was able to cut the dummy. Ronan takes his stance and makes one clean cut through the dummy's head. The swordsmanship instructor, Nabiros, was shocked. The 2 professors who were making jokes still did not realize what had happened. This was expected, as all these 2 were doing was making fun of Ronan, which he could hear maybe. And as their attention went towards the headmaster, he was stunned himself. Nabiros did not waste a single second and lunged towards Ronan, stopping her sword just before his neck, and asked him where he learned this swordsmanship. Nabiros's sword was up against Ronan's neck. She asked him where he learned that swordsmanship from, but soon changed the question and asked if he had seen her movements. Ronan replied that he did, even though it would have been difficult for her to unsheath her sword. She was still able to swing it 3 times. Nabiros replied that it was indeed 3 times, similar to his own arrogant cut. According to Nabiros, Ronan swung his sword 3 times but made the late cut extra slow, just so the judges could actually witness it. She thought that Ronan was being considerate towards them and that he shouldn't be taking them lightly. I'm sure our MC is dumb, but not that dumb to take the exam of his lifetime lightly. However, even though she was right, she was a little off track. He had only adjusted his strength because his sword couldn't withstand the last cut at this rate. But how she was acting, Ronan decided not to tell her all that because she might not even believe him. Afterward, she just walked away, telling Ronan that she will always remember him and that she will be the one teaching him at the academy. Does she have a tsundere side? Just tell our MC that you were impressed. Her last statement sounded like she had found a liking and approved Ronan to enter the academy. Soon after, the headmaster complimented Ronan and asked him a common question that they ask every candidate after the test. The question was regarding what he wanted to learn from Philion. Ronan answered and told them the one thing he wanted to learn was to not have any regrets. With that being said, his test concluded. After he left, the headmaster said that his answer was quite troublesome and would prove difficult to teach him something of that sort. Indirectly, he also approved his admission to Philion. Looking at the approval of these 2, the 2 other theory teachers were confused, but then their eyes witnessed the dummy, which was completely beheaded. Just how many times will these 2 make a fool out of themselves? According to the headmaster, Ronan did not use any tricks. All he showcased was his raw talent. After Ronan came out of the examination room, he was still thinking about Nabiros, and if he could have been able to defeat someone like her, even in his previous body. He knew the answer quite well, and that's what motivated him to learn more and become an even better and stronger person. All that was left was the written test. He was quite confident as he had been studying hard for the past month. It was easy according to him. Yeah, No, it wasn't. He completely bombed the test and was closer to failing than actually passing it. I knew it, all bronze and no brain. Maria was wondering how he managed to do this badly in the test, even when she had provided him with a lot of material to study from. Zell in reply told her that he took someone the material and became so focused on it that he completely forgot about the rest and ignored it. He was completely depressed after the test, and the result of the test was about to be announced. As Maria was comforting Ronan, the announcement of the candidates who passed the test appeared. Surprisingly, Azel had placed 12th in the practical test and 1st in the theory test along with 3 others. All the while, Maria placed 9th in both practical and written tests. They both were overjoyed as they had passed the test. Maria congratulated Asel for taking the top stop for the theory test, and even though 2 other candidates were tied with him, it was still an awesome achievement. After they both were done congratulating each other, they asked Ronan about his rank, and he was even more depressed than before, almost looking like an undead. He couldn't see his name on the list. However, suddenly something exploded nearby. It was the entrance exam's last cannon fire, which showed Salatorians of each department. A phoenix appeared and threw a fireball towards Ronan. The fireball exploded just before hitting him and his name appeared. Apparently, he was the salutatorian of the martial arts department but had placed 5,712th in theory. 5,712th might just be the last place. I'm sure he could have ranked better if he had just left the test empty instead of writing weird stuff. After witnessing this event, everyone jumped on Ronan, overjoyed that all of them had passed the exam. Even for someone who placed 5,712th in theory, becoming the salutatorian in the physical test was quite surprising. But it finally hit him if he had placed first. Then what about Schlieffen? He definitely lost to Ronan, and his reaction would not have been a good one. Just as he was thinking it through his head, he appeared behind him, Sword-Sound Schlieffen himself, asking him if he was the one who came first in the practical exams. Both Ronan and Schlieffen were now facing each other. As he was such an important figure, the tension around him was increasing. Ronan quickly realized that he still had the same annoying personality. He couldn't stand anyone who was better than him at swordsmanship. Quite a childish approach to life. I guess he was a coddled kid. Ronan tried to avoid the situation by acting dumb, as if he was not aware of him being the top-ranked candidate. Schlieffen was not buying his acting, and Ronan asked him to show any proof, and if he had none, then he should stop fighting and walk away. Schlieffen had enough, and he swung his sword with full force towards Ronan, all while saying that this was the proof he was asking for. Ronan was able to defend himself, and in response Schlieffen said that if he wasn't ranked 1, he couldn't have been able to block his attack. Afterward, Schlieffen told Ronan to show him the skills that had bested him. At this point, even Ronan had enough and went ahead to fight Schlieffen. I'm surprised how someone like Ronan was able to hold it in for this long. He hit Schlieffen with the same swing attack that he had used against the dummy. Schlieffen was quite impressed and complimented the technique. However, he still blocked it and continued the fight. Schlieffen kept on asking Ronan to show him every technique he was hiding. The sole reason why Ronan was avoiding this fight was due to Schlieffen's ability to manipulate aura. Schlieffen uses an aura technique called Tempest Sword, which is quite troublesome. To avoid any chances of his using that, Ronan ran towards Assel and took him hostage, or at least acted like he did. This triggered Schlieffen, and he told Ronan how he could be such a coward to use a girl as a shield, even though Assel is a guy. Poor Azel, always getting misunderstood as a girl. What Ronan was planning worked. He was manipulating Schlieffen, as he knew that even at the time of death, Schlieffen held his values as a knight. Ronan used this opportunity to punch Schlieffen in the face and ran away along with Maria and Assel. Upon hearing the ruckus, a guard approaches, and when he sees Schlieffen in such a condition, he becomes very tense and starts asking him all sorts of questions. Schlieffen told him to calm down, as he was on a level of commoner at this exam hall, and that it was a fair duel between the two. Later, Schlieffen realized that his sword cracked a little. His sword was no ordinary one. It was made from the highest grade mithril, and for someone like Ronan to crack it with his shabby-looking sword. He was surprised and said that he would remember Ronan's name. What's up with everyone wanting to remember Ronan's name? The next day, both Ronan and Asel went to the Shimo forest, which was present on the outskirts of the capital. Apparently, they were looking for something when Asel interrupted and asked Ronan if it was really okay to go on with their lives, considering what had happened yesterday. With him being such an important figure, if he retaliated, Ronan would be in grave trouble. However, Ronan comforted Asel by saying that he didn't have to worry about it as Schlieffen was a good person. The only thing he was serious about was his swordsmanship skills, but he held principle as the highest priority. He is a perfect noble who protects the weak and is fair to everyone. Ronan predicted that Schlieffen might have just said that it was a fair duel amongst them, and if someone was to put in jail, it would be him for raising the sword first. As they finished talking, Ronan saw the destination he was finding in the forest. It was a mana vein that Professor Varen had told them about. It was called the Fernado Swing. Mana that is present all around the world sometimes gathers around in a single spot to form a puddle that is called a mana vein. It is not an ordinary existence, as whatever is surrounded by it gets upgraded automatically. A regular rock becomes the highest grade mana stone, and a normal weed becomes a medicinal herb. It is kept hidden most of the time, as people monopolize it for their gain. The scroll that Varen gave them a while ago had the direction to this mana vein, as it might help with the egg hatching. Asel was able to feel quite different from his regular self. All the mana flowing through him made him stronger in regard to magic usage. Still, no effect on Ronan. Maybe his mana usage is useless after all. The bluebird's egg was absorbing the mana at an incredible speed. Unfortunately, Maria wasn't able to join them as she had some merchantry business to take care of. Suddenly, Asel noticed something weird. At least according to the professor, a lot of fantastical species came to live and nest here because of the mana vein, but they had not even seen a normal animal since their arrival. Ronan realized something too. He was a bit annoyed but told Asel to take his guard up, as he could smell blood.